a way of starting, I will offer a few comments, and I would say I am extremely disappointed with respect to the decision that the country of China has made in further increasing their temporary tariffs on our canola seeds, which will add to the existing tariffs on canola oil and meal. This is a response to the government's tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles largely, and China's decision to impose preliminary anti-dumping duties, or what we would call temporary tariffs, is set at 75.8%. That's on Canadian canola seed as of August the 14th, this Thursday. That will have a devastating impact on the price points for Saskatchewan's canola industry, and I would say ultimately Saskatchewan's ag producers. So let me be clear that this hit will stop a significant amount of trade that is flowing into China today. This comes on top of the decision that China made in March of this year to impose 100% tariffs on Canadian canola oil, canola meal, as well as pea imports, and added to that some pork and seafood exports as well. Beijing has also announced an anti-dumping probe for Canadian imports of pea starch, of which they will be working on in the weeks and months into the future. That is another potential impact for Western Canadian ag producers that we just simply can't withstand at this moment. This announcement, and I would say that the timing of this announcement is in particularly hard on our ag producers in this province and across Canada, as they are hard at work starting their harvest procedures and getting their harvest underway. We've estimated about 12 million acres of canola is seeded in Saskatchewan just this year, and the Canadian canola industry is about $43 to $45 billion each and every year. That is responsible, that industry, for over 200,000 jobs, Canadian jobs, and with China accounting for about a third of our exports, the United States of America would be about 40% of said exports. They total about $5 billion. China's exports total about $5 billion annually, much of that coming from our province of Saskatchewan. To put this in context, this $43 to $45 billion canola industry, the Canadian canola industry that we have employing just over 200,000 people, that is significantly larger than the steel industry, the aluminum industry, and the car manufacturing industry combined. It's about the same size as the Canadian forestry industry, of which we saw significant supports for just this past week. Each of those industries, the steel, the aluminum, and the EV industry, have also been hit hard by U.S. tariffs, as has our forestry industry been hit hard by U.S. tariffs. But canola producers hit with these Chinese tariffs, I would say that they deserve the same attention by our federal government and our Prime Minister as we're seeing in other industries. And we are asking that this be dealt with immediately, and I've reached out to the Prime Minister this morning, and I expect I'll be speaking with him at some point later today. As has our Agriculture Minister reached out to his counterpart, and our Trade Minister talking to his counterpart. We've been asking our federal government and Prime Minister Carney to engage at the highest level since the federal election. And for over a year now, we've been asking, or about a year, we've been asking the federal government to engage with China and start the advancement of those conversations to find our way to a solid and secure trade environment moving forward. The Prime Minister, in fairness, has started those conversations, meeting with the Prime Minister of China, and I would say most certainly now that the next step is for the Prime Minister to meet with the President of China, and I'll be expressing the urgency and the need for that meeting to happen when we talk at the next opportunity. We need immediate action on this file. This is a significant Canadian industry, as I say, about comparable in size to the Canadian forestry industry and much larger than the steel, aluminum, and EV industry combined. We are engaging with every opportunity that we have. We are engaging at all levels, with ministers engaging with their counterparts, not only in the federal government, but in provinces across Canada. We have meetings planned with Chinese representatives for later this week, and we've been actively engaged on this issue since before even these tariffs were announced, and even prior to the tariffs on canola oil and meal, which were announced this spring. I would say this. We are faced, not only in Saskatchewan, but in Canada and many countries around the world, in an ever-changing geopolitical environment. Our trade relationships around the world are very, very fluid, and they're changing rapidly, changing by the day in some cases. And so collectively, I would say that we as Canadians, we need to very much focus on taking care of Canadians at every level of government. We as Canadians also, and I would say that our federal government cannot sacrifice a $43 billion canola industry, 200,000 jobs in that industry, that is largely based, in fairness, in Western Canada, to protect a fledgling electric vehicle industry, largely based in Eastern Canada. So I would close there, and I would offer an opportunity for any questions.
You've mentioned engagements with Chinese officials. Will that be the ambassador who you previously met with?
Yeah, I've met with the ambassador a couple of times, a number of meetings happening between ministers and consul generals as well. Also reaching out, I've spoken with, I've reached out to the Prime Minister. Our ministers have reached out to their counterpart. I've spoken to a couple other premiers as well this morning, as well as some industry representatives, some exporters as well. And I think, as I said, I'll be speaking to the Prime Minister, I expect, in the next number of hours or day for sure. And I think we need to bring the industry together, production, exporters, as well as the levels of government, so that we can collaborate on what our next steps are. Whether it be a trade deal with the United States of America or whether it be a trade deal with China. And we need both. And this industry, I think, is very indicative of the fact that we need both moving forward. That is going to have to happen and be agreed upon between Prime Minister Carney and, in the case of the United States, President Trump. When it comes to China, that agreement and our path forward is going to have to be agreed upon by Prime Minister Carney and President Xi. And so we are going to support the advancement of that conversation to happen, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Why do you think China imposed these new anti-dumping tariffs?
I would say that it would be for China to say. The 100% tariff on canola oil and meal previously was a response to the steel, aluminum, and EV tariffs that we have. I would suspect that this is a similar response to the EV tariffs that we have, and I would say that we as Canadians, and certainly as a federal government, need to have a very serious look at whether we're ready to sacrifice an industry that's larger than all three of those industries, employing over 200,000 Canadians at this point in time. However, as we move through the next number of days and weeks, there is an opportunity here for us to further expand not only our trade relationship with the United States of America, but also with countries like China. And if we want to in any way diversify at least future trade away from the United States of America, China is going to have to be one of those options. That's what Canada has been doing for over a decade now, and we intend to continue to do it into the future. And so we're reaching out, as I say, to the Prime Minister, our federal government, to see what we can do to advance that ever-important agreement and meeting that will have to happen between our Prime Minister and the President of China.
Would you consider having like a trade mission in China regarding this?
Yeah, that's been under consideration for some period of time now, but it has to be coordinated and it has to be well planned out. And that's what our contacts in our Chinese trade office, for example, of which we've been criticized for even having by the opposition at every opportunity, wherever our trade offices are located. But that has been an ongoing discussion that we've been having. But it needs to be coordinated with the federal government. As I said, it isn't going to be the province of Saskatchewan that signs a trade agreement with President Xi. It's going to be the Prime Minister of Canada. And so we need to put and make every effort to use the tools and the assets and the intel and the contacts that we have as a province to put our Prime Minister in a position where that conversation can happen and so where these tariffs can be lifted.
Is there any form of assistance or any sort of financial assistance or whatever assistance for canola farmers?
Second question that will be asked of the Prime Minister and the federal government is we saw significant assistance coming in the way of the forestry industry just this past week. This industry is similar in size, and I would say at least similar in the jobs that are provided. And so that would be the second question that we will have. First question is how do we put our federal government in a position where we can have that conversation with the country of China and the President of China to have these tariffs lifted. Thus, that support wouldn't be needed. And if that can't happen in the near term, we are going to be asking for support similar in scope to what we've seen in the forestry industry most recently. Sorry. Oh.
Do you take the Chinese ambassador, who was making the rounds not too long ago, and basically, at least if you listen to him, it seems like they're very serious about a growing trade relationship with Canada. Do you take them at the, do you believe that's the case? Do you, from what you've observed in your conversations?
Well, listen, this is not our first experience with non-financial tariffs or financial tariffs from a country like China or other countries around the world. Why we have a presence in many of those countries is to support our Canadian trade relations in said country. That being said, I was under the impression, and I feel the federal government as well, and the industry was under the impression that we were progressing in those discussions with China on the responsive tariffs on canola oil and canola meal. And so, although we knew the anti-dumping study was happening and that this could happen and likely would happen at some point, I was hopeful that the discussions that were happening that had started through Prime Minister Carney had extended to various ministers, as well as the officials within the government of Saskatchewan working not only with the ambassador from China, but with officials from the government of China. I was hoping that this could be avoided. That doesn't appear to be the case this morning, and now so there's a shift in tone and a shift in urgency in the work that needs to happen in the days and weeks ahead. And we need to come together as provincial and affected provincial and national leaders, the industry, producers, as well as the exporters. And we need to plan out how our engagement is going to look in the days ahead. And that engagement isn't only with the country of China. Every decision, as we see the United States of America shifting and changing trade relationships with over 100 countries around the world, every decision that is being made in international relations today not only has a direct impact with that country, but is proving to have indirect impacts with peripheral countries that are important to the province of Saskatchewan, as I remind everyone that we export to over 160 countries around the world.
Is your government planning to appeal yesterday's pronoun law decision?
So you mean the court decision with respect to the bill on parental rights? We understand that the court has made a ruling that particular piece of legislation, although it is under the notwithstanding clause, the court. There's an application to the court to review it, even though it is constitutionally protected by one of the tools available in the very Constitution. The very same ruling had came through a piece of legislation in Quebec not long ago. I believe it was the Hack case, with an opposite ruling. And so that case is before the Supreme Court of Canada. I would say that that's where it's going to be decided on whether courts can look at or rule on a piece of legislation that is being protected by the notwithstanding clause. That being said, on a more direct to the bill on parental rights, as you know, the Minister of, first of all, it is the government's position that parents do have a right to be involved in their children's education, the classes they choose, the decisions that they're making. Second to that, we have asked the school divisions who operate and provide policy and procedures within the very schools in our communities across this province to work with parents and to work with families to come up with policies that are acceptable and supported by the very families that they represent. And that work is undergoing as we speak, and we look forward to where the school divisions are going to find not only that consultation process, but the implementation of the policies that are really being developed, I would hope, with the consultation of the families and parents they represent.
So just, you talk about parents' rights, but, there's also students' rights, so why do you put one over the other?
It's not about putting anyone's rights over or the other, but it is, parents that, very much are there to support their kids, and we feel that they should be made aware of, for example, the classes that they're choosing to attend in school up until a certain age. That is the belief of this government. However, as I said, what we've asked the school divisions to do is to consult with parents specific to the policy that is going to operate within their school. On the broader case itself, as I said, there is a parallel case that had a different decision in Quebec. And that case is before the Supreme Court of Canada, with a number of provinces intervening on it.
How do you respond to the Saskatchewan Environmental Society's court challenge, which claims your coal power extension violates federal rules and climate commitments?
Well, we're asking for the federal rules to change. And we're going to be operating those plants into the future to provide affordable, reliable power for Saskatchewan residents and Saskatchewan industries as we transition to a much cleaner nuclear power source. In fact, we're just putting together the finalities on, from an emissions perspective, that if we were forced, and we can't do it in time by 2030, but if we were forced to switch to natural gas and then to drag out the conversion to nuclear that we are planning in this province, there would actually be a larger emissions profile by how we generate electricity over the course of the next 50 years. So our plan is to transition over time from a coal-fired generation source ultimately to nuclear. In the same time, have the opportunity to transition and train our workforce that are currently working in coal-fired plants to work in our nuclear plants as we move forward. It's a structured, organized transition that will provide for the lowest cost of power for families in this province. And power costs are going to be an issue in the years ahead across Canada and around the world. But also provide the opportunity for us to continue a solid investment strategy in attracting businesses into the industries that are employing Saskatchewan people into the future as well. And so these are some of the this is some of the work that's happening with the new leader, the new Prime Minister of the Liberal government as we speak.
Yesterday we heard from residents from Denair Beach who are upset that you haven't visited yet, and we're wondering why you haven't, and goal fundraisers and
yeah.
But you haven't been up there. Why haven't you visited Denair Beach, and do you have plans to?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll comment on the comments about golfing in the north. You know, the NDP are being dishonest with the people of Saskatchewan by saying that. I was at the University of Saskatchewan this morning and here with you this afternoon. I will be at caucus meetings over the course of the next couple of days. Yesterday, I was in Lache as well as Beauval, and have been busy in many parts of the province as well as other parts of the nation over the last while. And so for the NDP to suggest, without any knowledge, that I would be golfing rather than meeting with any Saskatchewan residents is an outright lie, and it's dishonest, and the Saskatchewan people deserve better, and the leader of the opposition should apologize directly to the people of this province. The people of this province want not only a serious government, but a serious opposition, not a dishonest opposition, and that's what they're getting today, and an apology is deserved. With respect to the North in general, there have been numerous ministers that have been in numerous communities across the North, including myself, as recently as yesterday. Numerous ministers, and the Minister of Public Safety has been in Denair Beach on at least 2 occasions, as well as deputy ministers, Minister of Environment, and others. He very much has brought a clear message, and I would hope, you know, being a very capable and competent, and I would say busy minister at this point in time, that the people of Denair Beach, who have experienced such a tragic loss, many of them, can be confident in the voice that he is bringing to the table of the cabinet and the caucus of the government of Saskatchewan in supporting their community. And you saw this over the course of the summer with, first of all, the doubling of the per diem rates for evacuees. Second, a $500 upfront payment in that per diem. You saw the $20 million that is being provided for those that have experienced you know, the loss of their home or a cabin, so that we can prepare the community for the rebuild. $20 million largely into Denair Beach and East Trout Lake, a significant investment in those very families that have experienced loss. That came about by a representation of the Minister of Public Safety within the government of Saskatchewan. One, because he's been in constant contact with the leadership of places like Denair Beach, like Creighton, like East Trout Lake. The recovery task team that is on the ground to help answer the very questions that are being asked by individuals from Denair Beach on SGI claims, for insurance claims with respect to the property that they own, provincial disaster assistance programs that may be available for those uninsurable items, and how to ensure that we are preparing the community to rebuild. Throughout this, I would say, in addition to the opposition being dishonest with the people of Saskatchewan and throwing out accusations that just simply are a lie, it is a good thing that the Minister of Public Safety has been not only in the community of Denair Beach, but many other communities throughout the North. because we have had, but on one occasion, one piece of correspondence from the MLA from Cumberland with respect to representing those very constituents that he claims to represent. And this is troubling. And I would say it's been challenging to some degree for the government. And so thankfully, the Minister of Public Safety has been in constant contact with local leaders to provide $20 million in preparatory rebuilding support, to provide the recovery task team in Danair Beach to support those families that have experienced loss, because no such even question or advice has been provided by the member they elected to the Legislative Assembly. And that is disappointing. So not only are the NDP lost and reckless, but now we're finding that they're dishonest as well with the very people they vie to serve.
Just on the operations perspective as well, came up at the media conference yesterday. Reflecting back, the gentleman who spoke, the resident spoke, he said if he was a leader, he would be embarrassed by the response to the wildfire, specifically in Danair Beach. They specifically outlined the volunteer fire department, 11 people were basically left alone to protect that community. Can we get your response to that?
Yeah, with respect to operations, you have to ask that question of Marlo and Steve and the folks that actually respond operationally to the fires that may be occurring. I would point out that the fires that we experience, and listen, the loss of a home and so many homes in a place like Danair Beach is to not be understated in any way. But the fires that approached not only Danair Beach but many other communities were more intense, and talk to the folks on the ground and in the plains, were more intense than virtually anything they've seen, and more intense than anything that I've been informed of in my time in government, for sure. And there was many of them. And so the response was not only Saskatchewan-wide, but we had resources in from many other provinces, virtually every other province, as well as Mexico, Australia, and many states across the United States of America. Our goal and our role as a government is to ensure that we are funding that response. And as you know, we took delivery of a plane that is dropping retardant on fires today. And are going to take delivery of 3 more over the course of the next 3 years. Thank goodness that funding was provided last year, because the wait line today is much, much longer for that type of aerial infrastructure. But I think as we find our way to a close, and I did hear this from yesterday, is we want to ensure that this doesn't happen again into the future. And this was very much part of our conversations that we had in the northern communities of Beauval and Lalanche yesterday, is we need to do what we can, and we're doing that in Danair Beach to support the residents that face fire, experience loss, and we need to support them in all of, and do better by the way of communicating in all that we are doing, whether it be the Saskatchewan Public Service Agency or other agencies of government. Second, we need to expand the opportunities that we have to train, for instance, Type 3 firefighters right here at home, particularly in northern Saskatchewan, so that we have individuals that are certified so that they can not only fight fire but defend the very communities where they live. And last, and I would say of utmost importance, if you look at the community of Wadden Bay, of which faced a very similar fire in 2015, and took the very decisive action to access provincial and possibly federal funding to almost completely fire smart their community with wet lines and sprinklers and fire breaks. They took a direct hit from this very intense fire in 2025, 10 years later. Very little, if any, structure loss in that community. And so I would say in the spirit of, what are we going to do as a government in the years ahead to ensure that we're doing our level best that this doesn't happen, and we don't have a community that's experiencing the loss of homes and buildings and memories like we see in Danair Beach and East Trout Lake, is to ambitiously work with the federal government as well as our local leaders to come together with a program that is going to provide that opportunity to drastically up our efforts in fire smarting our northern communities in the way of fire breaks, in the way of permanent wet lines around those communities that can be utilized in the years when a fire is encroaching on them. And so the path forward is going to be taking the Fire Smart initiatives that we have and the funding that we have today, combining it with federal opportunities, and I've spoke with a federal counterpart on this already as recently as the last couple of days, and ensuring that we're working alongside communities and protecting them should something like this happen again. And so I hope that's an answer to the individual's question. I haven't met him. His MLA is not written on his behalf or anything of the sort. But I would say that that is a path that the government is working towards as we find our way, hopefully, to the end of a fire season with some, what I hope is some rainfall falling today.
One more question. Do you have any response to the Patrick Lundrock stepping down or resigning as executive director of Sask Party?
Yeah, thank you. Patrick's been around for 4 election wins for our Saskatchewan party, and most certainly has been in many ways somewhat of a mentor to me on the party side and party operations. And I would say that he's personally become a great friend as well. And so we've been talking about this for a while, not just even this last election, but after 4 elections in a position that is very political, and like, what is he, 15 years or even longer in that position, closer to 20 likely. That's rare. That's rare to serve in a executive director position of any party across Canada for that period of time. And so my first is to say thank you on behalf of the party, but also on behalf of myself. He's served the Saskatchewan party, and I would say more broadly served the province of Saskatchewan well.
I just have one more question about canola tariffs.
Yeah.
I guess, it's huge news, we can all agree on that, but the bigger news probably will come in about a month when the review takes place.
Right.
After China can determine if they want to keep them or not. I'm just curious, what impacts will producers feel now for this month? Canola's not even out of the ground yet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, right now on any old crop canola, what we're seeing on the markets as far as the impact is limit down today, and likely going to see that for future. So price impact is what we're going to see today. You raise a very important point, though. This is a temporary tariff put in place until the finalization and review of the anti-dumping report and study that they have. Which to me is an opportunity for Canada to engage and engage ambitiously, so that as that report comes forward, there isn't a final or a permanent tariff that is put in place. And so that is, you raise a great point, and it's a point that I was actually going to raise as well with the Prime Minister, that, herein lies our opportunity. Everything is temporary at the moment. Let's see if we can have it removed before it becomes permanent to what is our second largest export market for Canadian canola, employing over 200,000 Canadians.
The SHA's new haircutting policy, does your government have anything to do with that policy going into place?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The SHA's new haircutting policy, does your government have anything to do with that policy?
No, not to my knowledge, and as it seems, quite operational. But what I would say is it just seems like an awful lot like common sense to, in particular, not do things to people that, like cutting their hair or whatever, should it not be absolutely necessary for a medical procedure, out of respect to that individual, and even more so, I think, when you think of the importance and of an Indigenous person's hair to them, as something that I think we should all have an understanding of. And so the change in policy is welcome. It seems odd that it would be necessary, to be honest. And I think it's just another reminder for each of us that we all need to do better when it comes to, reconciliation, and you often hear me talk about economic reconciliation and other things, but just to be respectful of one another as human beings. And that's what I really equate this to.
Why do you think they're only getting the policy now?
Why are they?
Yeah, if it's common sense, why do you think?
Yeah, that would be a question I would ask as well, is to the individual that cut the hair, is, on what level did you ever feel this was necessary or think it was a good idea? And so, I'm thankful that they, I guess, put a policy in place, but I have wondered as to why it would even be necessary.
Can you ask questions?
Going back to the wildfires, New Brunswick and New Nova Scotia announced certain measures to prevent people from walking into forests due to wildfires. Are there also some announcements, measures here in for campers and for hikers?
No. No, I don't know how you do that here with respect to people walking in the bush that we have. I was in La Loche yesterday, and people live in the bush. They're going to walk in the bush, and they need to, go to town at times, whether it be on whatever it is. We've done, some temporary measures with respect to, quads and campfires that, and that was under a time when we were extremely dry. And out of the first couple hundred fires that we had in this province, they were largely being lit by human activity. Not intentional human activity all of the time, however, some of it is, but being lit nevertheless by human activity. And so we had made some measures earlier with respect to campfires and quads. But as far as hiking or, some of the other measures that are being taken, we have no intention and have had no discussion with respect to that. And it does look, at least in the northwestern part of the province, that there's some rain going to be falling in the near future, and we hope that's the case. You had one. Yeah.
Just to get you on the record, the leadership of the SPSA, Roberts, Marla Pritchard, do they under full confidence?
Yeah, I know. I think, and what I heard in the community of La Loche yesterday was very much praise for the work and the communication in the community of La Loche as they were just returning from, I believe it was about a week-long evacuation or so, and it didn't go without challenge. And we worked through and talked through, what some of those challenges were. When communities are evacuating, or worse yet, when communities are experiencing the loss of buildings, and thankfully we have not experienced the loss of life, which is the primary goal, there is a lot going on. And emotions certainly are very high, and the SPSA and their leadership do their level best to do the work that they do in a professional manner, but that doesn't say that we're all human, and we're all, I'm not going to say make mistakes, but we could all do better at times, and I think that's true for each of us in whatever we do. That being said, what I heard late yesterday was some concerns on specific issues, but much praise for the efforts and the professionalism in which the SPSA and their leadership are working with and communicating with the communities. That being said, I also asked those community leaders to jot down the things that they would like to see better, because we always want to work, and the government's goal would be for the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency to provide a better response next time than they did this time. And I think that's been true through the evolution, or the evolution of this agency or any other agency.